Good evening, everyone. As Paul has said, I will be sort of giving an overview into the states and the work that SPARC has done. I think it's important to remember that Nigeria is a young democracy. It's gone through 5 election cycles, and with each of those election cycles, we've seen a different crop of governors. I will restrict myself to state level. Well, I'm sure Dako will give a much broader federal overview. With each, as I said, election cycle, we've seen a different type of governor or different types of governors, different democratic styles, and a different take on growth and development. Now, Nigeria has 36 states, of which the local context is very different. The SPARC program works in 10 of those states, which is about 66 million Nigerians we're supporting. And I will stick to the data we've got from those 10 states. Along the way, from 2007 till date, we have seen healthy competition begin to emerge from the governors. So if one governor does something in his state, another governor will probably be spurred on. But a fundamental change in the way governors behave and react came in 2009 with the emergence of the Nigerian Governors Forum. Now, that forum existed before then, but a dynamic leader emerged, so the sort of relationship with the federal government changed. But let me take a pause from that to sort of read the results from a citizen perception survey, which we carried out at various times. So from 2007 till date, we've done about 3 of them. And it's interesting when you sort of hear what citizens thought. And that will sort of form the backdrop when I tell you the sort of support that we've given to states and what has emerged. So in 2007 to 2011, a significant proportion of respondents rated the government high in 3 areas. 1, keeping communities safe, ensuring access to primary education, and providing medical treatment. 50% of respondents rated the government badly in providing information on budget spending. 46% rated the government poor in including citizens in plans. 42% providing the public with progress reports on implementation of plans. The bulk of the respondents knew little or nothing about whether the civil service was working to resolve problems experienced by citizens. And a similarly high proportion knew little or nothing as to whether or not leading government officials were answerable to the judiciary. Okay, so following on from that, an example, in 2011 to 2015, 9 out of the 10 states thought that the main challenge was long waiting times at government health facilities. People felt less free to express dissatisfaction with government services in public than at home. In 8 out of the 10 states, a majority of respondents felt included in decision-making in their community. 9 out of 10, a large number of majority of respondents felt women had lower chances than men at senior levels of government. And in all states, very few people turned to local governments to bring their opinion to try and sort out their issues. And the specific examples which I will use going on. Now, in 2015 onwards, people thought they were satisfied with government health service delivery in 10 of those states, and that health service delivery had risen by above 60%. Satisfaction has dropped overall, especially in governance and accountability. Some groups thought that citizens' response to government had dropped in terms of being able to identify what their issues were, and so on and so forth. Now, SPARC works majorly in 3 areas at subnational level. 1, we support governments to develop plans, think about their plans, identify the areas that they need to put into their policies, and then make policies. We work in the financial management systems, where we try to look at what their systems are doing or saying and help them basically with the right tools to make budgets, better forecasting of revenue. And we try to ensure that we're supporting them to have better civil service, which is the engine room. However, in 2007, what we met was hardly any plans on ground. States hardly had any state development plans. They weren't planning in terms of developing medium-term sector strategies, which would then lead their development trajectories. Their civil servants were overbloated, or their civil services were overbloated. They were not efficient or effective in the work that they did, and they consumed more of the budget. Hence, the recurrent budgets are very high, as opposed to capital budgets, which you then need for development. And so what we then did was to support them through that process of putting those things which they would need, those processes on ground. Now, the question I often asked myself after I read the article was, are the states indeed in crisis? Well, in the past 7 years, I would say that there are islands or pockets of development. Some people are getting better at doing things. However, with Nigeria, you must understand that the context is very different in terms of even in regions, where there are 6 states in a region or a geographical area, the development and the growth will differ. So for instance, in terms of policies and strategies, people are beginning to develop better medium-term sector strategies. We are seeing better planning using data. Yes, the data systems are very weak. So for instance, states have give less or little money to data or surveys or trying to get evidence. But now we see that, yes, people are making plans, and those plans are effectively going into the budgets. States are taking up state development plans and producing good ones at that. Of course, there are some states, and I won't mention names, where these are done just for the sake of doing. So people do it, but they are not really used, and they don't go anywhere. We've seen more transparency in budgets, better budget formulation. We've seen budget variances reduced to, in states that we've supported, to less than 12%. For instance, in a particular state in the Northwest, we've got budget execution of above 90%. So people are working. And they are trying to do their best given the context that they're in. However, of course, very recently we were hit with the crisis, the oil crisis, and we thought, well, this will do one or two things. One, it will either just get states to be in disarray and not do anything about anything, or two, it's a great opportunity and probably will spur states on to trying to generate, whether it's their own domestic revenue or putting in place structures that will stop leakages. And so we were actually instrumental to guiding the Nigerian Governors Forum to sort of doing the prayers that went to the president and the bailouts were released. However, we had also try to encourage that certain measures were put in place, and so, that would better help states to utilize these monies. On the other hand, states are very aware that they need to sit up. They have taken out, although sometimes it doesn't look like it, extensive measures to improve internally generated revenue. And we are seeing states better plan. So for instance, people are developing internally generated revenue strategies, and we have revenues improving. I can give a number of states in Anambra, Niger, those are just a few of where revenue has turned around and people are making more money in 6 months than they made the previous year. So they are thinking about these things. However, unfortunately, we have weak institutions that don't cater for the sort of speed in growth that these states are hoping to make. We also have the very touchy issue of public service reforms, where that involves a lot of politics, moving people around, employing people. A lot of the time, the civil service has been seen as a patronage-driven vehicle. So it keeps absorbing people where there is no need to absorb people, and that has made the service bloated over time. So what we encourage our states to do is have a sort of holistic view. Paul gives an example in Kaduna where ghost workers have been reduced. Great. And that has come about with people putting systems in place. For instance, we're beginning to see states put these these HR information systems in place, which enable them to capture all the data. However, at federal level, I think that has been successful to an extent. But what we see is sometimes when you weed those people out of the system, the same people find a way back into the system. So obviously, there has to be other measures put in place. We are seeing people beginning to be a bit more transformational as opposed to transactional, where systems are becoming more entrenched. So it's not just, oh, we're going to make a budget for a budget's sake, or we're going to carry out corporate planning in a ministry. I'll give you an example. In a certain state in the north, they, of course, looking at the IGR situation and wanting to improve their finances, decided to carry out what we call corporate planning in the Board of Internal Revenue. And they found out that out of the 470 odd staff that they had, only 242 were adequate to do the job. And so what they basically did was just to send those out of that particular office to sort of find out where their skills were best suited, and then change the chair of the board. And of course, the chair then sued because he thought his tenure wasn't up, and the government forcefully removed him. But now we've seen that that state, particularly the IGR, has risen significantly. Loopholes have been blocked. Of course, coming back now to the Nigerian Governors Forum. The Nigerian Governors Forum was quite instrumental in a lot of things, especially bringing state governments to the fore as a force to be reckoned with. A lot of the fights we had in terms of the political issues between federal and state government came with state governments feeling that, well, states are closer to the people, we provide more of the services, therefore we should get more of the money. Federal government didn't think that was right because, well, they are the federal government. And we then had a situation where there were massive fights over the Sovereign Wealth Fund, over deductions, and up till now, those fights will continue. At the moment, the states are beginning to see reason why the Sovereign Wealth Fund is important, or and those will not go away. They will come up as soon as the money goes down again. We are seeing issues with as I said, the sharing formula. I don't see that going away anytime soon, except if the Constitution is revised, and that in itself is a mammoth task. With the bailout funds, yes, there has been a bigger clamor for states to utilize it properly, and there's been some investigations as to what states have done with the bailout fund. Some perhaps have not done as much as we had hoped with it. But then again, the question is, are the states themselves viable enough to then either pay back these loans or do something tangible except offset the overheads that they've got? Yes, we've got a lot of states now beginning to do the right things. As I said, Spark works in 10 states. However, we've provided support to more than those 10 states through a specific facility that DFID graciously allowed us to have, which was the Access for Sharing Information platform. And we've seen other states really want to develop and want to do things the right way. So although there are crises here and there, I do believe that some states are taking the necessary steps that are needed to do the right thing. Thank you.